Hello and welcome to episode number 508 of Smart Podcast Trashy Books. I'm Sarah Wendell and my guest today is Jess Michaels. Jess is celebrating the release of her 100th book. Wow, 100 Nights with the Duke. That is a lot of books. And she has had a long career of close to 20 years. So we are going to talk about how she's celebrating this milestone. And we're going to take a look back at how her experience of the romance industry has evolved over nearly 2 decades. I do want to let you know that close to the end of the episode, we talk a little bit about her father who passed away earlier this year. I will have links to all of the books that we talk about, and I will have links to a list of all 100 of her releases as well in the show notes at smartbitchestrashybooks.com/podcast. And speaking of the podcast, hello and thank you to the podcast Patreon community. I really appreciate the fact that all of you have pledged to keep the show going each week, make sure every episode has a transcript. Thank you, Garlic Knitter. If you would like to join our Patreon, it would be fabulous to have you. Have a look at patreon.com/smartbitches. This episode is brought to you by Fuzzy, a telehealth service for pet parents that offers 24/7 access to personalized pet care from veterinary professionals. As you know, I have a feline audio assistant, Wilbur, and 2 elderly dogs, Buzz and Zeb. And if you have elderly pets, you know that their health can change very rapidly and sometimes in scary ways. From everyday questions to middle-of-the-night emergencies, Fuzzy has the answers pet parents need through live chat and virtual vet consultations available 24/7. Fuzzy can answer your pet questions, big and small, urgent and everyday. I know with Zeb, who is probably about 14, I need to pay attention to his skin. He has old dog lumps and bumps, and while I know not to worry about some of them, having a veterinary professional available for my questions is a big relief. Fuzzy helps me help them enjoy their years with us. Right now, Fuzzy is offering our listeners a free 7-day trial membership. Go to yourfuzzy.com/Sarah today to sign up. That's a free 7-day trial and access to exclusive member discounts on pet meds, supplements, food, and more at yourfuzzy.com/Sarah. Again, yourfuzzy.com/Sarah for your free trial of Fuzzy with access to 24/7 personalized pet care and vet-recommended products. This podcast is brought to you in part by June's Journey, a hidden object mystery game that several of you have downloaded and started playing along with me. Hello to all of the members of the SBTB Romance Club inside June's Journey, and nice job on us getting that first place. June's Journey is a hidden object murder mystery set in the Roaring '20s. You play as June Parker, an amateur detective investigating a series of mysteries full of twists and turns around every corner. You progress through the mystery story by gathering clues found in different scenes, and you level up by building and restoring property on Orchid Island. There are so many different elements, but the heart of the game is the hidden object scenes, where you try to find as many objects as quickly and accurately as you can. It is very easy to get caught up trying to beat my last score. I really like the puzzle challenges, but I really like how relaxing it is. And one of my favorite things to do at the end of the day now is listen to a podcast and try to beat the weekly challenges. There is a detective in all of us. Find your inner detective. Download June's Journey free today on the Apple App Store or Google Play. This podcast episode is brought to you by Ritual, a vegan-friendly multivitamin delivered to your door that's formulated with high-quality nutrients in bioavailable forms that your body can actually use. Many people aged 19 through 50 are not getting enough vitamin D from their diet, and some are not getting their recommended daily intake of key omega-3s. Ritual's Essential for Women 18 Plus multivitamin was formulated by exhaustive research to help fill nutrient gaps in the diets of women ages 18 and up. It is formulated with nutrients to help support brain health, bone health, blood health, and provide antioxidant support. Ritual also invested in a gold standard university-led clinical trial to prove the impact of Essential for Women 18 Plus multivitamin. I like knowing all the steps behind my vitamins, and I love the ease. My multivitamins are delivered to my door every month with free shipping, and I can start, snooze, or cancel my subscription at any time. Right now, Ritual is offering my listeners 10% off your first 3 months. Visit ritual.com/Sarah and turn healthy habits into a ritual. That's 10% off at ritual.com/Sarah. This episode is brought to you in part by Switchcraft, my new favorite game. Switchcraft is a brand new story-driven take on Match 3 games. You know the games where you match 3 gems or sparkly things? As you play Switchcraft, you unlock new chapters of a gorgeously drawn graphic novel. In Switchcraft, you play as Bailey, a witch at Pendle Hill, the world's top academy of witchcraft. Their roommate has gone missing, and each choice you make brings you further into the mystery. The best part? The cast is incredibly inclusive, with characters who are non-binary, disabled, and from a variety of cultural backgrounds. And did I mention the art is gorgeous? I cannot tell you how pretty it is. The choices you make determine the outcome of this story, and there are romance options. Plus, Bailey has a cat that you help care for. The cat's name is Magnus. I love this game mostly because of the art, so give it a try. Download Switchcraft for free and unlock the magical mystery. This episode is brought to you in part by my favorite shoes, Rothy's. April is Earth Month, and more attention is being given each year to how we can better care for our planet. And one thing I love about Rothy's is that they are made of sustainable materials and they're washable. Rothy's has repurposed millions of water bottles into their signature thread that goes into all their products. And they use sustainable practices designed to minimize waste to create their shoes and handbags. I know you've heard me talk about Rothy's before. I own one of nearly every style they make. The point, I think I have 4 of those, the loafer, the moccasin, and the lace-up sneaker. I was wearing those earlier today. I love all of them for travel. Plus, when they get dirty, I toss them in the washing machine. They come out looking like new. I love these shoes a lot, not only because of how they look, but because of how long they last. When you're wearing Rothy's, your footprint feels lighter than ever. Get $20 off your first purchase today at rothys.com/Sarah. That's ROTHYS.com/Sarah. Are you ready to do this episode? Let's take a look back over 100 books and close to 20 years in publishing with Jess Michaels.
I am Jess Michaels. I write mostly historical romance, set in the Regency period, super sexy, and that's pretty much the whole of it.
That's a lot of books.
It is, although it's renamed technically that they were under, although the bulk of it is Jess Michaels now, but Jenna Peterson was the first, it's 10 or 11 of them, 12 of them maybe. And then I did the urban fantasies, Jessie Peterson, which was six books.
Right.
So like a portion of it, 20, 25, 30 books were under different names, but the majority of it is the Jess Michaels
And you
brand.
are celebrating 100 books.
Yeah. When you say it out loud, it kind of freaks me out.
Holy crap.
I know.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Okay.
I know. It's pretty exciting.
So tell me all of the ways in which you've been celebrating this massive achievement.
So I decided to do this 100 days to the 100th book countdown, which is a great idea. And then you have to create 100 days worth of content for that.
Yeah.
Which isn't, it's not the worst, but it's actually been really fun because it allows me to kind of reflect back on, so I have you do consistent posts just to make it easier. So it's like writer memories. And then it makes me kind of think about what were some of my favorite moments over the last 20 plus years or the last 100 books that so I get to pull that out. I've been doing a trope Tuesday. So I've been trying to figure, what are my favorite tropes and which of my books fits into that. So that's been really fun. Just kind of although what's really funny is sometimes I'm like, I don't remember what this book was about. So I said I only have one book that's fake date. And somebody's like, what about this book? I'm like, I only have 2 books that are fake date. Yeah. So it's when you've written that much though, it's easy to sort of it's the past is kind of not my wheelhouse. The future is more my wheelhouse. So
yes.
It's been kind of fun to reflect, and reflection time is fun. So enjoying that. Lots of giveaways, lots of fun stuff to lead up to the release on the 10th of May.
What are you doing for yourself to celebrate?
I don't know. This has been this big bone of contention, right? Because normally we might go on a big trip, but it's still weird. Everything's still weird. So it makes it more complicated. And I don't know. I need to do something to commemorate. Maybe I'll get a tattoo again. I'll get another tattoo. Ooh. Honestly, that would be the best way to do it. Because then it's something big and something permanent and something to remind myself. So,
or you could theoretically do both a tattoo and a trip.
Yeah. I could get a tattoo on a trip.
You could get a tattoo of your trip. You could get a postcard of your trip on as a tattoo.
Yeah, I could get every single book just down the arm. Oh, the pain.
You're gonna. It's 100 books,
maybe
though.
Not that. That's too many.
You might run out.
I need to think of something.
Room.
Yeah, I know. I've run out of space. I need longer arms.
Wow. So
I know.
How many tattoos do you have? And do they all commemorate books?
So I have 1, 2, 3, 4. Is it 4 or 5? I think there's just 4. I don't even know. So my first tattoo was to commemorate my first published book. So it was a historical romance set, and it's like kind of the influence was The Mummy,
right?
So it's a Egyptian ankh with a rose because I was very basic, and it's a basic tattoo, but it's whatever, it's fine. I have a butterfly on the back of my neck, which commemorated the book. That one was fun. On my arm, I have my religion is kindness, just to remind myself. Yeah. And then I have a big old phoenix on my calf, which is my favorite.
So for this book, for your 100th book, what kind of tattoos could you do? I'm investing myself in your tattoo. Like, what can we do? I'm involved in this at all. Like, I'm just telling you what to do. What kind of tattoo?
I think in this case, like, it has to be something bookish, like specifically bookish, right? Like a stack of books or a typewriter. I don't know. I have to think about it, but there's a really great tattoo shop that is woman owned, and like everyone in the shop it's very LGBTQ friendly, and I really want to get a tattoo from them. So they do beautiful work. So I know where I want to go. I just don't know I have to think on what I want to get.
You could get like a stack of books, and on each spine have your different pen names, and then on the top have the 100.
Yeah, maybe. Okay, we've come up with it. I'm writing it down.
All up in your business. 100 books represents a really long time in this industry. Is a really long time.
Yeah.
And I just hit 500 episodes of my podcast, and the site is, as of January, the site is 17 years old.
I know.
Which is a really long time on the internet. So I feel like we were talking about this. I feel like you and I are like on rocking chairs on a big porch.
In the old days.
Yeah, get off my lawn. So what are some of the biggest changes that you've seen over 100 books in your career? I mean, not a lot has changed in the industry, really. It's all exactly the same. Not at all.
I mean, the biggest sea shift is definitely indie publishing.
For sure.
You know what I mean? I mean, that's the biggest shift for me is that, and that's been the best shift for me personally as well. I mean, going from when you and I first met, when we first talked 8,565,000 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, all there was traditional publishing, really. I mean, you could independently publish, but there was no distribution. You certainly would never hit a list. You know, you would be selling books mostly out of your car, or
people called it vanity.
Yeah. There were more vanity versus like indie presses. Yeah. Although there were more small presses that were legitimate. There were more choices amongst the large presses because they hadn't all eaten each other yet.
Yeah.
But that moment where we could gain that control and just take it in our own direction was like really the biggest sea shift, I think. In good ways and in negative ways, I think we've seen that ripple throughout the whole industry. And I mean, I'm happy about it, but to me, that's the biggest change for sure.
Yeah.
When I started, my first 3 books with Avon didn't even have an ebook.
Wow. That is a long time ago.
Yeah, because I realized I had put my books in order just on Amazon, and I was looking for something, and I realized that Scandalous was like later than other books. That was my first book with Avon, and I was like, wait, why? And then I realized it's because the ebook came out in 2008, 3 years after the paperback book came, and that was the date that they had pulled because it was the latest date.
Exactly.
So it had made it look like it was old, like much younger book. And I was like, oh, right. And then I kind of remembered having to sign an addendum that it was like fine for them to do an ebook. And I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy to think that.
I remember the debate from publishers, and I think there might still have been 6 or more publishers at that time, that there was a discussion of when it was appropriate to release the ebook of a new book. Like,
Yeah.
well, we think it should be a year after the hardcover or a year after the paperback. Like there was this whole argument about when the ebook would be released, and it was a big deal.
Or I remember at the time being like, well, I mean, are we going to do ebooks? Like, no, don't worry your pretty little head. We don't. That's not really a thing. That's a passing fad.
Yeah. And the whole idea that, and this is, okay, so this is still a little bit true, but it's much less true, that whatever choice you make in your career, you have to fall on your sword for that choice and defend it until you are completely exhausted, because if somebody chooses something different, then that invalidates your choice.
Mm-hmm.
I don't miss that. I mean, there's some of it, but I do not miss it.
Right. But at the beginning, it was like if you were, independently published, or you were with something like when Alora's Cave was huge, there was this whole, I mean, within, not that RWA should be held up as a structure of anything, but like, well, those aren't real books. Those aren't real books. Those books you can't be a published author in RWA because that's not a real book. And it's like, but it felt like the money was pretty real for those people.
Yeah,
and
listen, the bank accepted my money.
Yeah, I'm going to take you're taking my bad money and you're letting me pay for my, my membership with it, but sure, it's fine. But I mean, I have to tell you, I have been on the ruining romance side of publishing for because sexy romances are ruining romance. And I'm like, fuck, that's me. Like ebooks, independent publishing, like all that. I do think, and then there was a big swing the other way where it was like, why would anyone traditionally publish? That's a bad choice. And now it feels like that's kind of all sort of settled back into the middle where like having all the options is okay. But it's just like, don't people understand that like all of our paths are different? And so it's like, none of it is wrong and none of it is right. Everything is just, this is what works for me and this is what I'm doing.
Right. What if your choices are actually neutral for everyone else except you? Because they're, if the choice is only relevant to yourself.
Right.
Right. And I have existed as a business. I like to think of myself like out in a field with a scythe, and I'm like, oh, that looks good. Let's go that way. And I start cutting the grass and going that way, because there aren't a lot of models for me to follow. There aren't a lot of people who started weblogs and then a podcast and then made that their job. There are some, but they don't have everything in common with the way that my business is structured. So I really have to and had to develop confidence in the decisions that I make, that I was doing the right thing for my business, even though I have exactly 0 business degree. And I had to figure it out without listening too much to the, oh, well, if you do it this way, you're bad. I'm like, my goal is to make money and sustain my business. So that's my judgment right there. Like, can I do those things? And I imagine after 100 books and after so many models of publishing, you also had to say, okay, I'm doing this and it's my decision. And you had to develop a similar sort of internal compass of how you were going to make decisions, right?
Yeah. And I think that finding success in the path is really helpful, because then it is sort of like, well, I don't really care what you think because I'm paying my bills. So I guess I'm doing okay. And I don't really care what you think.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I mean, like that's ultimately, I think, helped me like have more self-confidence in that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're public enough that everyone thinks that they have an ownership of what you're doing or an understanding of what you're doing because they see it from the outside.
Yep.
And that's both the positive and the negative, because we all put this like positive face forward. And so sometimes people think that you're just doing great and everything is fine. They have no idea what's going on in the background.
No.
And they don't, or all they see is the success. Like there's this great meme, which is like, it's the meme of my heart. And it's like one of the feet is in the ballet slipper up on point, and the other one is the barefoot, just completely ravaged.
Yeah.
And it's like, everybody wants that until they see what
what's
goes
inside.
into it, right? Yep. My life is the broken foot and my career is the point shoe, you know? And again, after such a long time, like I feel enough confidence in what I do and how I do it because it's working, that I guess I don't most of the time care.
I also think that one thing that has changed is the degree to which now authors arrive into the marketplace understanding that they have to build their brand under their own names. Because 17 years ago, there was a lot of identification of your career by publisher. Well, I am a Pocket author. I am an Avon author. Now people realize, okay, if I am going to be successful, I need to establish my brand. And publishing is a way for me to do that. My brand is not my publisher.
Yeah. I mean, I think about when I started, like I didn't build my newsletter because they told me not to worry about it.
Yeah.
So I do love, again, like I think author agency is a big shift.
Yeah. It can be very hard to relinquish control, can't it? Once you've had it, it's really hard to give it back.
I don't think I could relinquish it now. Like, no. But the act of shifting from, I had no control under a major press, right? I had low to moderate control under Sam Hain, which was like a mid-sized press, and now like 100% control, except for like once the book is out, you never have control of that. But
no, that's when the control ends.
All of the decisions going into that moment.
Yeah.
Was really scary because I was like, oh shit, it's just me now. It's just us. But my husband, so he manages all of the publishing and production stuff, and that lets me be the creative person and the person that kind of leads the marketing and the brand stuff. So I mean, he really makes the ship go. He's the engine of the whole entire thing. And he said to me, we're going to screw up. Yep. Don't think that we're not going to screw up. But the difference is that we're going to care that we're screwing up and we're going to fix it.
Yeah.
Versus like, I mean, I remember a book getting it had just accidentally, because it happens, placed in the system. So it wasn't put under historical romance, and it just vanished. And I said, you realize that that isn't how it's labeled. So it's not pushing onto those lists. It's not getting visibility. It's not gaining momentum. They're like, oh no, that's very terrible. We'll fix it. And 6 weeks later they did. And then they were like, well, your last book didn't do very well. And I'm like, hi, I'd like to introduce, you mislabeled it.
Oh my gosh.
And so the difference is maybe we would do that, although he's Mr. like check everything 50,000 times.
Yeah.
But it might happen. But he would instantaneously be like, I got to fix that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it would be an immediate fix and not something that got put on a list with 5,000 other things.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that, it's never that you're not going to make mistakes or learn, but it's that like no one cares about my career and no one ever has, and no one ever should as much as I do, or he does.
Yeah.
Because it's the method of our life. I mean, this is 100% how we fund
your life,
family's lifestyle.
Yeah.
So I can't, I have to keep pushing. And, I mean, and again, it's not a valid expectation that my editor, or my publisher, or my agent are going to care as much. Because I'm a cog in a wheel.
You're one of several. And also just looking at the changes and the way people are talking about their work in publishing and how much it sucks. Have you seen all of these Twitter threads from these editors who are like, I'm out of here. I am burnt out. I can't do this. Have you seen the XOXO publishing Instagram?
Yes, I was just going to say, have you seen the XOXO publishing? And I know she hasn't been doing as many stories, but I was like,
oh my God. Oh my God. I went down a rabbit hole on the whole thing for like an hour.
It's like a 5-episode like podcast series all on its own.
Yes.
But again, that toxicity has existed within this system for so long. And it's just that I love this generation. They're literally the best. They're my favorite. They're just like, oh, you're treating me like shit. I got to go. And I'm going to tell everybody about it. And no one knows how to handle that.
Oh, yeah.
So that's what we're seeing is it's a real sea shift. And it's going to be really interesting to see what happens long term.
Yeah.
And now it's just it's all just dumping out onto the internet.
Yeah.
And it's kind of it sucks.
Yeah. And I was thinking when you said 6 weeks later, I'm like, that there was probably one person who could make that change, who had a to-do list of 5,000 items.
5,000 things.
And then every other day, someone was coming up to their desk and saying, no, this is the emergency. You must drop everything and fix this.
Yep.
And as we've seen with a lot of discussion in the sort of growing work reform movement in many industries, young people who are technologically fluent are expected to shoulder the technological lack of fluency of senior executives. They're expected to just manage all the technology because, oh, you're a young person, you know how to do this natively. It's easy. It still takes time and energy.
Yep.
It's really interesting to me because, over your career, the way in which you run a business as an author has changed significantly. And I feel like right now, the way that publishing runs as a business is about to change dramatically. Or it should, and it's due. And we're just, because it's a corporate thing, it's like pivoting a cruise ship. It doesn't happen very easily.
It's hard. I'll be very interested to see if this industry that seems to have just decided to mire itself in a very traditional and very conservative and not in a positive way.
No.
like kind of mindset will ever change, or, what will it take for that to happen?
Yeah, for sure. And one thing I think that has changed a lot is romance readership.
Yeah.
I mean, for example, one thing I've noticed is that readers are very specifically siloed. And once they learn the language of what it is that they like, they know how to go and find the communities that focus on that thing. They're going to be able to find a very specified, for example, very specific Facebook group for dark mafia romance with heroes who wear gray suits and purple ties that take place in this country. Like there's going to be an audience of people who are like, that's us, come over here, hang out.
Yeah, it's got like 8,000 people that are members.
Right, yeah.
You're like, oh, okay. Wow, that is a very specific and very large niche. You can make a really good living off of it.
Yeah, exactly. And the way in which readers are connecting to each other and the language that develops around that is really interesting to me. But what are some of the things you've noticed about readers changing from the beginning of your career till now?
I mean, I think it felt like they were, like you'd have like, Avon readers and pocket readers and, you know what I mean? And,
Yeah.
and I think that that's kind of gone away. I mean, they seem like they're so much more interested, like you said, they want a specific feeling, a specific, tone, a specific author. They want to feel, and I also think, and I hope that this continues, that like more readers are being more vocal. I think they always wanted this, but they're being more vocal about wanting a greater span of diversity, of wanting less toxicity, and being more verbal about that and vocal. I don't, I mean, our genre is intensely problematic. My particular corner of the genre is intensely problematic just by its nature. But I do think that seeing that begin to change and that ship turning is really positive.
Yeah. And that also goes back to what you were saying about how the younger generation behind us, they grew up with fanfic and tagging and specificity of what they wanted. And I like this trope and this flavor and this style.
If we just keep, especially again, coming from a historical romance for the most part corner, if we don't figure out how to be more diverse and be more inclusive and be more welcoming and the things that we all say we want to be, but then we don't do, those readers are not going to come to us because they don't want historical romance so white. They want diversity, and they're not going to come to this corner. And you can see that readership getting smaller as they older readers are kind of dying out and younger readers aren't coming in as much. Like if you want to have a resurgence of historical romance, you can't just have diversity when it gets produced into a television show, but there's not any diversity on the page. Like that's a step, but it also has to be on the page. And that's something that we have to reckon with as a white author. It's always something you're reckoning with, of like, how do I bring that in without co-opting somebody else's story?
Yeah.
And nobody's saying it's an easy answer. There's no easy answer, but at the same time, there has to be an answer. We have to be trying to reach for it.
Yes, absolutely. Now, if you could tell your just starting out self all of those years ago, what would you want her to know?
Oh, that's a really good question. I mean, so much has happened and so much has changed, and I wouldn't want to tell her anything about what that would be, because I think she kind of had to go through all that stuff to get to where I am now. I was always very hard on myself about failure, and I still am. That's how I'm built. But that all of that failure tends to, like, I get back up and pull up there's a reason that the tattoo on the leg is a phoenix. Like, I burn down to the ground and then I go, okay, I'm going to get back up and do it again. And that part of me is the best part of me, and to not be so hard on that part's always going to come out. It's like, well, this was a failure. Nobody wants to buy me. Da, 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 da. And then the next thing you know, like, you're phoenixing back up and something better comes out of that every single time.
Yeah.
So I should tell myself that for now too. I'll watch this back later. It'll be fine.
Yeah. And also, when you're looking at something that you try and didn't work, eventually, I have found there's always a piece of it that's applicable later.
Yeah.
Even if the whole of it didn't work, there's always a piece of it. I'm like, oh, I already have this skill. I know what to do.
Yes. Yeah, that's really true. There's no wasted, and you see this a lot with people that aren't yet published. That's like, well, I wrote a book and I want it to be out and it's a wasted book. It's like, no, it's not, because you learned so much from writing it. You learned so much from pitching it. You learned so much from having that realization that this book is not ready is really powerful, and something that, you can really grow from as an artist, as a person, as a writer. I learned from failure is so much more than I learned from success.
Yeah.
I mean, I would love everything to be a success, but that's not how life works.
Yeah.
So I can learn or I can win. Those are my two options.
And you also have a career where you have tried some things that at the time were out there and you made them work. Like, I don't remember anyone writing zombie fighters when you came out with
zombie comedy. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that should have worked. And it worked as far as like it sold at auction. That was really fun. I got to have that experience. And then the whole thing just a big, giant, huge failure. Like, never has earned through at all. I've never made a dime beyond what they paid me up front. In fact, I think they're giving those rights back, but because it makes zero money. That was like crushing failure, because they thought it was going to do really well, so it was a really good lesson that, because I was coming out of a situation where I didn't have any publisher support really, and that had become increasingly worse, and coming in here, like, I have huge publisher support, huge editorial support. And when it failed, everybody was like, somehow we screwed up, you didn't screw up, which is again, very opposite. But that was the thing, is like, I had told myself this story, like, if I had the publisher support, then it would be okay. Well, I know it's a good book. That's the thing. Like, I never believed I wasn't writing good books. I write good books and I have publisher support, and sometimes things just don't work. Who knows?
Sometimes the timing is wrong.
Yeah. Timing was wrong.
Yeah. But now
covers were wrong, maybe the release dates were wrong. Who knows why?
There's too many variables.
There's too many variables.
Yeah. But the nice thing about, and I say this a lot, especially for authors who have control over their backlist, a book that someone hasn't read is a new book to them. I understand why it is the way it is. I wish publishing didn't focus so hard on the release week, because it's very limiting. Considering the amount of effort and work that goes into the book, to only focus on it for 7 days seems very short-sighted. And there's just not enough human beings inside publishing to really amplify backlist.
And that's a really hard shift as an author too, that, like, coming from a traditional background, even though I've been independently published exclusively for the last 7 years, I still have such a hard time breaking that mindset. Right.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things that I'm working on, because we're going to be changing the schedule of how I publish. So it's going to leave me larger gaps in between where I can start working on backlist, because I probably am not going to be able to write at this rate and publish at this rate forever. And I probably don't want to write at this rate and publish. I would like to have a retirement. And part of that will be really utilizing that backlist, because a huge portion of my income comes from that backlist. Like, it is passive income that brings in money every single month. So not leveraging it, because I actually have the capacity to do so and the desire to do so,
for sure,
is foolish. So, and you see it we're doing translations now in German and Italian. Those are all backlist books, and they're bringing in all kinds of new frontlist money, or audiobooks. You introduce that to a new market. It's a new book.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a whole new world.
Absolutely.
One of the promos that I did for this countdown was talking about which books were free. And I saw this huge uptick. This was a few days ago, and all the free books that got downloaded. And then in the last couple of days, I've seen the second books in those series all go up, because it's like, oh, right. That's why I write series.
Yeah.
So that's why we do that. But there's no just well, it didn't work, so it's over.
Nope.
There's always a new way to refresh it, whether that's you put a new cover on it, you promote it in something, you put it in a, collection, there's always 1,000 ways to make something new again and remind people. And when people come and they buy book 78, right, and they like it, then what they do is they go back and they buy book 50, or they buy book 97. And so the best thing I can ever do, always, every single time, is write a good book.
Yep.
And that's my number one
priority
is to write a good product and package it the best way that I like.
I'm fascinated by something you mentioned. We were emailing about protecting your creativity. And it sounds like part of giving yourself a greater space between books is about also protecting your creativity. What does that mean, and how do you approach that?
So I actually have a lot of really driving strengths. And so writing quickly and putting out books quickly is actually super, super healthy for me. But what I used to do before the pandemic was I would write, and I would start to come down and start to crash from just being such a heavy producer. And then we would go on vacation. So we go to Scotland for 10 days and hike the Hebrides, and I would turn everything off and just have a great time. That would be this big refresh, or go to Disneyland, or, you know, I don't know, go to Vermont. I don't know, wherever we were going, and just be separate from it. And that would allow my well to fill back up. And then by the time I came back, I'd be excited to get back to work, because work is a super positive place for me. I love creating. Publishing, I don't always love, but creating, I always love. And, you know, that feeds me.
Yeah.
I've also really begun protecting my creativity by not being on social media so much. But right now I'm on pretty intensely because we're doing this countdown, and all of that is through social media. I took a long break in December and I wasn't on in December at all. And I didn't see it affect at all the sales for that month. And I was just like, this is more healthy for me, because it's so easy to compare, get frustrated about what's being promoted, of believing that this narrow window of what you see is the reality of what is. And also just writing things that make me excited, like that just make me happy and make me excited, because ultimately I have to live with it for the, you know, 6 or 7 weeks that I'm writing it. And I want to be excited by it and not be trying to live up to anybody else's expectation.
Yeah. So what are you working on now?
So now that the 100th book is up for pre-order and all that is working, I'm going to be starting a new series. So I would have started it last month, but my father passed away in February. So everything just kind of went off but in April, I will be starting my next series, which will be out in, assuming the world will just calm down for like 5 minutes so I don't have to I have learned enough from trauma in the last 2 years. I'm good. But assuming that no one else like dies randomly, knock on wood, that I don't fall and hurt myself again, then those books will be out in August, September, October. So we're going to be doing back to back. And then I'll also be part of a collection with a bunch of other historical authors called Duke in a Box, like the Saturday Night Live skit.
Duke in a Box. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to be writing the piece that's going to be in that as well. So that's kind of the next planning. And I haven't written anything new, which is very weird for me, since January when I finished the 100th book.
Yeah.
And so it's been a really big gap for me as far as work. And so I'm excited about remembering how to be a writer.
I'm sorry about your dad.
Thank you. I appreciate it. He had been sick for a while. We were expecting it. You never expect it, but you expect it.
It's a weird space to be waiting for something you don't want to happen.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's very hard. So I always ask this question: what books are you reading that you want to tell people about?
Oh, God.
And you can also mention your own. That is fine.
Because of all of the chaos going on in my life recently, I have not been reading as much as I wanted to.
Yeah.
It's really weird. I don't read as, like, I get onto kicks, right? So like I read 23 Katie Robert books.
Yeah.
That's my candy right now is Katie Robert. Oh my God. Everything about her is magic. Like, I especially love her super short, super dirty novellas, because super short, super dirty novellas are all my jam right now. Cause it's like, that's as much as I can focus on.
Yep.
And then like, you know, I get on these like mindfulness, like self-help kicks as well.
Yeah.
So that I'm alternating. I'm like super porny, everybody fucks. And then like, let's look inside of ourselves. And, you know, analyze how to be a better person.
Yeah.
And then super sexy, everybody fucks.
Yeah.
So I don't think this is I think it's a good balance. I do think that reading is a really fundamental part to writing, but also like if I have to pick between writing and reading, I will almost always pick writing, because that is more like nurturing to me for some reason.
Oh no, I get it.
Because I tend to take in content when I've been sitting staring at a page with words, right?
Yeah.
6 hours. Then I want to go watch The Mandalorian, you know?
Yeah.
Or, you know what I mean? Like I don't, it isn't always the first thing is grabbing a book. And then when I read, I'm like, oh shit, I really like reading books. Right. I'm a reader.
Well, thank you so much for doing this interview, and congratulations again on 100 books. Fuck yeah.
Yeah. I'm very excited. I'm thrilled about it. And it's been really nice to see people be excited about it.
And that brings us to the end of this week's episode. Thank you to Jess Michaels, and congratulations again on 100 books. That is astonishing and very, very cool. Thank you for coming over to celebrate with us. I will have links, do not worry, to all of the books we talked about and the list of all 100 of her books in the show notes. And you know where that is, right? smartbitchestrashybooks.com/podcast. Do you have questions or ideas or suggestions? Is there a book recommendation you'd like us to make? Would you like to tell me a joke? I would love to hear from you. You can email me at sbjpodcast@gmail.com, or you can leave a message at 201-371-3272. I love hearing from you. And I love hearing about what you're reading and what you're crafting and what you're doing while you listen. All of that is fabulous. So please don't stop telling me. It makes me so happy to hear from you. Speaking of happy, I have a bad joke, which also makes me happy. This joke is from a wonderful person's child who came up with this joke, and I am extremely proud of this person's offspring. Are you ready? What is the most reliable part of the human body? Give up? What is the most reliable part of the human body? Your fingers. You can always count on them. That is from Gallifrey Falls 55 on Reddit and their offspring, and I am very impressed. I love it. You can always count on them. On behalf of everyone here, we wish you a wonderful weekend with the very best of reading, and we will see you back here next week. Smart Podcast Trashy Books is part of the Frolic Podcast Network. You can find outstanding podcasts to subscribe to at frolic.media/podcasts. Count on them.